You have never once, in your life, had a fully private conversation. Not really. Somewhere, right now, there's a record of it, a text thread, a call log, a camera on a street corner, a friend who could repeat what you said if they wanted to. Privacy, the kind we take for granted, the ability to close a door and simply not be observed, is one of the most recent inventions in the entire story of our species. For most of human history, it barely existed at all. Ancient humans didn't live in houses with bedrooms and locked doors. They lived in small bands, sometimes as few as 20 people, rarely more than 150, sleeping within arm's reach of each other, eating from the same fire, spending nearly every waking hour in direct line of sight of someone who knew them intimately. If you wanted to keep something secret in that world, you weren't hiding it from strangers. You were hiding it from the same handful of people you'd known your entire life, who would notice the second something about you changed. So how did anyone keep anything to themselves at all? The uncomfortable answer is, usually, they didn't. Not for long, anyway. Some anthropologists argue that gossip itself is one of the oldest technologies humans ever developed, a kind of replacement for the physical grooming that other primates use to maintain social bonds. Once human groups grew too large for everyone to personally groom everyone else, talking about each other became the new glue holding the group together. And talking about each other meant constantly, relentlessly, finding out what everyone else was doing. In a group that small, behavior change gets noticed almost immediately. Someone eating less, someone disappearing at odd hours, someone avoiding eye contact with a person they used to laugh with. There was no anonymity to hide behind, no crowd large enough to disappear into. Reputation was currency, and everyone was constantly, if informally, keeping track of everyone else's, which means personal secrets. An affair, a grudge, a private fear, a plan to leave, had an almost impossibly short shelf life. Most individual secrets in a tribe weren't kept. They leaked, slowly, through small behavioral cracks, until eventually everyone quietly knew and simply didn't say so directly. But here's the twist that changes the whole question. While individual secrets barely survived, group-level secrets were fiercely, seriously protected, sometimes with consequences as severe as death for revealing them. The secrets that actually mattered to ancient societies usually weren't personal, they were collective. In many documented cultures around the world, certain sacred knowledge was split strictly by gender, practices and rituals known only to the men of the tribe, and separate practices known only to the women, each explicitly forbidden from being revealed to the other. In parts of Aboriginal Australia, this division is still recognized today as men's business and women's business, categories of sacred ceremonial knowledge that remain, by cultural law, restricted along gender lines, sometimes carrying serious consequences for anyone who breaks that boundary. Initiation ceremonies, found across an enormous range of ancient and traditional cultures, worked the same way. A young person wasn't simply told the sacred stories, the ritual meanings, the tribe's core secrets, as a matter of course. They earned access to that knowledge through a ceremony, often involving real hardship, and only afterward were they permitted to know what the rest of the initiated group already knew. Before that point, they were, quite literally, kept in the dark on purpose. The secret itself, becoming part of what made adulthood in that society mean something. Some secrets were simply too dangerous to leak for entirely practical reasons. The exact location of a reliable water source during a drought. The path to a hidden hunting ground that fed the whole group through winter. This kind of knowledge wasn't gossip. It was survival information, and revealing it carelessly, especially to a rival group, could mean the difference between your people eating that season or starving. These secrets tended to be held by a small circle, often elders, and transmitted deliberately, sometimes only on a person's deathbed, to a single chosen successor, exactly the amount needed, and not a person more. So how did people actually manage the mechanics of secrecy, day to day, in a world with essentially no physical privacy? Mostly through subtlety, not concealment. A conversation that needed to stay quiet happened while gathering firewood, just far enough from camp to be out of easy earshot, disguised as an ordinary chore rather than a deliberate retreat. Euphemism and coded language let people discuss sensitive topics in front of others without those others fully understanding what was actually being said. Whispering existed for exactly the reason it still does now, not because anyone believed it was truly unheard, but because it created just enough plausible deniability, just enough social distance to make an uncomfortable truth easier to share. None of this was foolproof. And that's really the point. Privacy, in the ancient world, wasn't a wall. It was a thin, fragile membrane, constantly under pressure, held together more by social convention than by any real physical barrier. People generally knew far more about each other's business than modern etiquette would ever allow us to admit to knowing about our neighbors. The difference is, they'd also built an entire unspoken code around what you did and didn't say out loud, even when everyone secretly already knew. There's something worth sitting with in that. We tend to think of privacy as a basic human need, something our ancestors would have craved exactly the way we do. But for the overwhelming majority of human history, people simply didn't have it, and the species survived, bonded, thrived, and built entire complex societies without it. What they protected instead wasn't personal privacy. It was collective trust, knowing exactly who was allowed to know what, and treating that boundary as sacred, even when the walls around it were made of nothing but agreement. Maybe that's the real secret. Not that ancient humans found clever ways to hide things from each other. It's that they mostly didn't bother trying and built their entire social world instead around deciding, together, what was worth protecting and who had earned the right to know it. You still do a version of this today. Every time you tell one friend something you wouldn't tell the whole room. The tools have changed completely. The instinct hasn't changed at all. If you want more of the history nobody actually teaches you, subscribe, because next week's video is about something ancient humans were doing to each other in plain sight that we still haven't fully stopped.